Mary, I'm glad to bring you back, and we're going to talk a little bit now about deployments, combat zones, tax exemptions, tax extensions when we're filing, all the fun things that come with deployments. Are you ready for it?
Oh yeah, all the fun stuff with deployments. That's what everyone loves. Yeah, especially with
Well,
spouses.
yeah, so deployments are hard, there's no doubt about it, but there are some financial incentives that come with it. I've
Yeah.
got 6 deployments under my belt, and they're not easy, but they do come with those advantages. So the one, probably the most common that people know about is the tax exemption if you're a combat in a combat zone that qualifies for tax exemption. But there are also a lot of other tax exempted pay and benefits that come along with that, like family separation,
hmm
hazardous duty pay, per diem, things like that. Can you walk us through a little bit about these exemptions or bonus pays, things like that, and the benefits and how they will impact our taxes?
Yeah. So, like you said, it's tax-free income for you. So, that's a huge benefit. Again, tax-free on the federal side, no matter what state you're in. Again, tax-free. So tax-free all around. I know even with states with their own individual laws, they all follow federal for that. So, a lot of them, like you said, deployments are hard. And so to try and ease that burden, they do provide these allowances for them and like separation pay. I mean, they put a dollar amount on, having to deal with being separated from your family, which, it may not be enough to actually compensate for that, but they are trying to help alleviate the burden. And a lot of times it's a spouse left at home with the kids having to do everything. So it's something to kind of help alleviate that because if whether you're a working spouse or a stay-at-home spouse, I mean, that can still be difficult. There are times where you're having to try and juggle everything by yourself, and maybe you need someone to watch the kids to go to a doctor's appointment and things like that. And so it can be financially burdensome. So they try and provide these things to help them, and again, tax-free to kind of help alleviate it even more because you're already being put through a lot of stress and you're put through dangerous situations. So just those things that they're trying to do to kind of help level the playing field for you to make it a bit easier.
Yeah, and it does help. I know when I deployed, I take care of most of the maintenance around the house, or I'll do minor car maintenance, or I'll take things in. So that money is there to help mow the lawn, childcare, repair your car, things that the service member might normally do, or if whoever it might be. It is helpful. So let's talk a little bit about that tax exempt pay. Federal taxes are no longer withheld, so you get to keep that additional income. Now, there
hmm
is a limit on that, and that's going to be up
Yeah.
to the highest enlisted rank. So it's going to be your senior enlisted advisor
Yes.
for each branch. So if you're an officer who's making more than that, you'll be tax exempt up to that amount.
Correct.
Everything above that is taxed. But that still is a pretty big difference that you're going to see in your paycheck. So there are a lot of good things we can do with that money. But there are some other tax advantages as well as they apply to the thrift savings plan, for example. Or let's say you're deployed for an entire year and you're in that combat zone tax exclusion for that entire year. You don't technically have earned income, but you
Correct.
can still use a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA through the HERO Act. So can you talk a little bit about some of those benefits, specifically the TSP and how that works?
Yeah. So, like you said, there are limits. Warrant officers aren't included in that. It's just a commissioned
Oh,
officer.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Um, so there are limits, but again, you're going to get that exclusion if you are an officer up to the highest enlisted pay. So you're still getting a big chunk of that, tax free. And the reason why they do that is, um, you know, these benefits are to try and help. A lot of times the soldiers they're not the highest income earners. So it's to try and help alleviate that. And so generally throughout all tax law, you'll see that the IRS tries to put income limits on it because these things are intended for people in need of that more. So it kind of falls in line with that thinking that they have. Um, but it does create opportunities for, I'd say, one of the best opportunities if, like you said, you're there for an entire year, do a Roth contribution because you're technically paying taxes on it, but you're paying taxes on it on a year that maybe your income, it's 0%. tax rate. So, take advantage of that because you're able to put that entire amount in there as a Roth contribution. So when you take it out, you don't have to worry about paying taxes at that time. So that's the biggest opportunity, is to be able to do that and set that money aside where all of it is going to come out tax free for you.
Yeah, and that's huge. A lot of people don't understand how big that is, but the way the Roth works is you typically pay taxes first, then you invest that money grows, then you pull it out in retirement and it's not taxed.
Yeah.
In this case, if you have tax-free income from your deployment, you get to put that money into a Roth. It's never been taxed. It grows without taxes, and then you pull it out. So it's like a triple tax benefit that
Yes.
you can't find anywhere else in the tax code.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're technically never going to pay taxes on that money, and that's a big deal. And if it's something where it's going to be in that account for 30 years, it's just going to grow a lot and be a big benefit to you down the road. So I would really encourage anyone to look at taking an opportunity to do something like that, because you may put that money in a TSP or an IRA, but when you file your taxes, you have a lot of other opportunities to get money back, and it'll so it's really like you're not putting in as much in as you think. Because if you're there for the whole year, your income, if you're the sole earner in your family, your income might be low enough to get things like the earned income credit, which an exception to the rule of being able to use the earned income credit is military members in a combat zone. They can do it even though they're really earning a lot of money, but taxable income is so low, they are still allowed to use that credit and take advantage of it, which can give you anywhere from like $2,400 to $9,000 back in taxes. And that's a refundable credit.
Yeah, the nice thing about it, the taxable refundable credit, is that it's cash in your pocket,
yes,
not just a deduction from your income. So that's a huge benefit that many military members, when they're deployed, can qualify for.
Yes, and there are other credits that you could maybe take advantage of if you have dependents and you pay for dependent care like daycare. If you pay for that, you may qualify for to take a higher percentage of that as a credit. That one's non-refundable, but again, it could lower your tax bill even more, especially if your spouse is working, and it'll help you keep some of that money at home.
Well, those are great tips. Now, if you're doing the thrift savings plan, there are a couple caveats. You still get that benefit if you put it into the Roth TSP. It goes in without you having paid taxes on it. It grows tax-free. You can pull it out in retirement at tax-free, which is huge. But the TSP shuts off once you hit that annual contribution limit with Roth contributions, or if you do a combination of the traditional before you enter or after you enter the combat zone. Your traditional contributions when you're in that combat zone apply toward your annual addition limit, which is a limit above your normal contribution limit. So those don't count toward that. If you are in the blended retirement system and you are getting a matching contribution from the thrift savings plan or from the military, you have to be very careful not to hit your limit with the Roth or your combined Roth and traditional outside of the combat zone, because once you hit that limit, it shuts off all your contributions for the year and you lose the ability to contribute further. So it's one of those things that some people aren't aware of.
You need to know the timing.
You have to time it, and you have to get a spreadsheet, be a nerd, get help if you need it. That's what I did when I deployed last time, is I pulled out the spreadsheet and I calculated it down to, okay, on this paycheck, I can do this much.
Mm-hmm.
And the TSP, you can only do adjustments in percentages of your pay. You can't do it in dollar amounts. So you have to kind of play with numbers a little bit to make it work. So just be cognizant of that, and make sure you play with numbers so that you don't lose out on such a valuable benefit.
Yeah, because it's huge. It's a good opportunity. So
yeah. So along the lines of combat zone tax exclusions, when we're deployed, the military wants us to focus completely on our deployment, focus on readiness, take care of ourselves. But the IRS also recognizes, hey, they're doing an important mission. So what happens if I'm coming up on, oh my gosh, I got to file my taxes, I'm deployed out, I get my paperwork together, or I just got back, it's January, like I haven't had a chance to breathe yet.
Yeah.
My tax return's coming up. What do they have for us?
So if you're deployed at all, no matter if it's a combat zone or not, you get an automatic 2-month extension of time to file. That's time to file, not to pay. So if you do owe taxes, you do have to pay at that time. But it is an extension of time to file. So you get 2 months automatically, no matter where you're deployed. If you are in a combat zone, they're going to give you, while you're in the combat zone, you don't have to file, even if the tax deadline comes up. You are extended up until the day you get back, plus an additional 180 days, which is roughly 6 months. Not exactly 6 months, because there would be, a couple days added on there, but it's 180 days. So it gets a little bit complicated if you come in before the deadline, between, January 1 and that April 15 deadline. You get a few extra days in there, but it's really just counting the days. So you get 180 days plus whatever days are in between. So let's say you come back on April 14th and the deadline's April 15th. So you get 180 days plus that one day.
Okay.
Where it gets really weird is, let's say you're gone over multiple deadlines. Let's say you're gone for 2 years. So let's say you're gone for the 2024 and 2025 deadline. And let's say you come back you came back in 2025 this year on April 14th. We'll use that day again. So you didn't file your 24 taxes and you didn't file your 25 taxes. You have, for your 24 taxes, you have 180 days plus that one day from when you got back to file your 2024 taxes. And you have, for your 2025 taxes, 180 days plus that one to file 2025. So you don't need to worry about filing anything while you're gone until you get back. So you get those extra days back to file. It can get a little bit weird. The deadline is April 15th, but some days April 15th, some years April 15th falls on a Saturday. So it's really April 16th or 17th. So maybe you have 2 or 3 extra days. But that's just a little too nuanced. I don't think it's very important, but you may have an extra couple days thrown in there because of that. But so you do have that time to file. And if you need it, I would just take it. The IRS may send you a letter because they don't know you're in a combat zone. And it's not like you're going to send them your orders saying where you are, because I think that's like a security issue anyways. But if that does happen, really all you need to do is send them a letter and say, hey, I'm in a combat zone and I don't need to file just yet. And that's all you need to do. The IRS is so big though that, it may not get resolved right away. I would just say, don't worry about it. You're not going to owe any penalties or interest. It just may be a headache of having to resolve it with them.
That's fair.
So
there are a lot of headaches with military pay and taxes. So in addition to this, are there any other resources that military members have available to them that can help if they're running into these issues with running tax deadlines, they're deployed, that kind of thing?
Yeah, there are, I think all of them have legal officers assigned to each group. You can go to them and they'll help you kind of resolve the issue as well, just so that you don't feel alone and you're doing it on your own. Or if it's your spouse who's all of a sudden having to write to the IRS, not knowing what to do, you don't want to be stuck in that situation and feel like you're alone on an island. So I would say, reach out. There are a lot of, like, Military One Source has a lot of free resources, tax resources, so you can get help maybe writing that letter, making sure that it has everything that the IRS needs to fix the situation and make sure it gets resolved. So I would say reach out and ask questions, because there are a lot of resources out there that are free that can help you do this and get it situated. But I mean, in all honesty, there are a lot of service members out there. When you're deployed, you probably don't want to wait to file, because you're probably going to get a return of money. And if you have dependents and you're going to get a $2,000 credit for each of your kids, you may want to go ahead and file that return while you're deployed. So I would say if that's the case that you're in, then come up with a plan before you leave to make sure that everything gets filed. If you're in a combat zone, your spouse can sign your tax return for you. So I don't think a lot of members know that. So if your wife is at home, I did it with Chad. I signed our tax return for us, and I just included a note saying he's in a combat zone. He can't sign the return, so I'm signing for him. And you don't need a POA to do that.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
And then just things like, I think all military spouses know, Social Security numbers and things like that. They already know those things before they leave, but maybe getting logins to be able to pull a W-2 and things like that to know if you own your home and you're going to deduct mortgage interest. Make sure you have the login with your lender to go in and pull that 1098 for when you're filing taxes. So just having that plan in place before you leave so that you can go ahead and file your taxes. Because again, a lot of times if your income's so low from being in a combat zone, you'll probably want to file while you're there and not wait to get that.
That makes great sense. And a lot of locations nowadays have good connectivity, good internet access, so you can get access to those files. A lot of military members can file on their own. Many don't have very complicated tax situations, so they can use Military One Source.
Yes.
Usually there's a free software that you can use through there. There may be limitations based on rank, but there's access to get it done if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to be able to have that little fail-safe and that cushion if your situation is more complicated or you're in a location where you don't have good internet access or the ability to file on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any additional tips for us?
I'm trying to think of some because I know that there are some out there just because there's always those little nuances. But with anything, if you are wanting to file before the April deadline, file early. The closer you get to the deadline, the slower the tax softwares are, because that's when everyone figures out, oh, dang it, the deadline's next week, and everything goes slow. And if your husband's deployed and if he's out on a mission for 2 weeks, I mean, you're not going to be able to get a hold of him then if that's how the cards play out. So file earlier is better, I would say, is the big thing. And like you said, put in fail safes so that just in case you're at least taken care of. But worst case scenario, if you're in a combat zone, you've got that automatic extension. You don't need to wait until they get back to file it. You can file it in June. If you're like, April's really crazy, I didn't get my taxes done, just know that you're okay, you're safe. You can file it the next month or file it in 2 months, and it's no big deal. It's going to be the same result. You just maybe needed to wait till things weren't so crazy at home while you're by yourself taking care of kids or something like that. So
awesome. Well, thanks so much. Those are super valuable tips. We appreciate you sharing them with the community.